So hopefully it's recording the right screen. So yeah, so you can follow along there. And then I'll also generally record if I'm in class, but maybe I'll just, like, if nobody shows up, maybe I'll just do the lesson and record it so you guys can always go back and look at it later. I know you guys can read, so it's a matter of if you would rather have me talking to you or reading it on your own, but I'll put them there in case you want them. Okay. So, oh, we're not going to let me do that. What is wrong with my computer? There it is. Okay. So what do you remember about the Great Depression?
I remember it was a rough time, and it was caused by like the stock market crash.
Yep. So we'll talk about why the stock market crashed today. So that's what the lesson is for today. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I know some of this is review for you. So just jump in. I mean, I won't ask you a ton of questions because then you're going to have to answer them. But if you have questions about anything, oh, this is going to be annoying. Oh, stop.
Yeah, I think you just click the space bar and it'll go automatically.
Okay. All right, so causes. So Herbert Hoover, he was president. He became president in 1928, and he was like your good time guy. And the market was really good in 1928. So people were still buying stocks on the margin. Do you remember what that was? I will also get you, like, on the review sheet, all the definitions you need to know, I'll make sure are on there. Like I said, I just haven't created it yet. And I can probably alter some of the ones from last year to match our book now. So buying on the margin or buying stocks on the margin would be you're buying them on credit. So it'd be like using a credit card today and making the smallest payments you can to pay for them, which isn't good necessarily, because if you're out of a job and you can't make those payments, it's going to be bad. So stock market speculation causes stock market sales to increase. So people thought that the stock market was really good, really strong. Let's invest. Have you had anything with investing here at the high school yet? With Miss Hendrickson?
I have like personal finance.
Did you do a little bit of that?
I did a little, yeah.
A little bit? Okay. And maybe, I don't know where my phone is. I can share with you after we're done with class. So I wanted to just kind of see how the stock market works, because I've never, like, we have an investment person, and like I put money away into retirement, but I don't do any of that. But I have through the bank that we have our car loan through, you can do like small investments. So like $10, and you can like do, it's called bid stocks, where I can buy $2 worth of Amazon stock versus having to buy a whole share, which is over $1,000.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm kind of just playing to see like if I can make a little money, lose a little, and I'm talking like cents. So far I've lost 65 cents in 2 months. So not too bad on $40. So like it's not too bad, but what I've been doing is kind of looking at online, and they have like portfolios there where I can see this stock's doing really good. So okay, let's move some money into that one. So that's what people are doing here. They're like, oh, that stock looks really good, let's invest. But then there's going to be the crash. And the other thing with stocks, when you're buying stocks versus investing in things like gold or real estate or things that are like solid, is that when the stock crashes, so let's say my $40, let's say the stock market crashed, I might lose half of it. My investment might go down to $20. And $20 is no big deal, right? But when you have everything you own invested in the stock market, it's not a good thing. Okay.
Other people I know invest in the stock market like a lot.
Yeah.
They invested in Tesla. I think Tesla's doing really well.
Tesla's doing. In fact, I think I have some bit stock with them. Like, because once again, their stocks are way more than I want to spend. But yeah, their stocks are doing really good. And I look at it daily, which I probably shouldn't, because what I need to look at is the trends. because yeah, daily things might dip, but like the trend for Tesla is going up. The trend, I know I have, I think it's Etsy. Do you know Etsy? It's like the online.
Yes, it's like a website.
Yeah, so that's been going up. So I have a little bit in Etsy. But like I said, so far I've lost 65 cents, which isn't bad, you know, when you think about it. But the first couple of weeks I had invested, I was up like 60 cents. So like little tiny things, but if you can get into it and kind of learn how to play it, you can, yeah, there's money to be made. I'm just not good at it.
Yeah.
So this slide you have in front of you just lists some of the causes of the depression. So you can take a look at that, but it talks about what caused it and like some things that happened afterwards, which we'll talk a little bit more. One of the big things I want to point to, I don't know if you could read it from there, was the uneven distribution of wealth, meaning the 20s looked really good if you lived in big cities and had some money to spend. Doesn't mean that there weren't people that were poor. It doesn't mean that the farmers still weren't struggling. So actually big cities were booming, but smaller towns weren't doing as well even before the Depression. And then the Depression hit and a drought hit and things got even way, way worse.
Yeah,
so
the richer got more rich.
Yeah, before the Depression, the richer got more rich, the poor got more poor. When the Depression hit, like everybody just was in the toilet. These are just some, since you know a little bit about stocks, so you can see that. So prices per share. So when people started buying, you know, you could say prices were $100. Well, if you invested in the early 1920s, all of a sudden you quadrupled your money. But then the stock market dropped back down here. So, you know, people that had invested their money and not needed to take that money out really didn't lose a whole lot, but some people didn't buy here. They started buying here or here when it was going up really quickly, and then they lost it, and it didn't regain. And the stock market goes like that. So when we've talked to our financial advisor, you know, you look, and there was a big dip in 2008 when the housing market crashed, and now it's built back up again. So if you do invest in the future, you got to look at that long-term plan.
Me and my brother talk about this sometimes. Like if we had invested, or if somebody in our family had invested in Coca-Cola,
I know,
like when it was like first started,
yeah,
we would be like billionaires.
Yeah, or what, like Apple.
Apple.
When it wasn't worth it, Amazon. When it was just a book company. Like now it's, like I said, I think it's almost $1,500 a share.
Or Tesla, that started at like $16 a share.
Really? And now what's it worth? I think we can look at it after. I have it on my phone.
I think it's over 1,800 now.
Is it really?
Yeah. My friends have made over like, one of my friends has made over like 90K on it.
Wow.
And then another one that's like just graduated high school already made like, I think 10,000.
That's awesome. If you can invest a few $100 and pick the right company, one I have that's continually gone up since, like I just started playing with this last month, is Nokia, because there's some new phones coming that aren't out yet, but they're coming out. So the stock just keeps going up, and I should probably put more of my $40 into there. I think I'll have like 10 in there, but I should probably put more money in there because that's the one that seems to be going up. Like I said, right now I'm just kind of playing so I can see, but I eventually might. I'm still going to trust my financial planner, but you know, if I could throw a couple $100 in there and see it grow, that would be really, like a really cool thing. I can just use that money for like vacation or, you know, whatever. So then the crash happened. The stock market affected the banks. So banks make their money by investing. So when the stock market crashes, banks crash. There's been some protections that have been put into place since the Great Depression, and we'll talk about those. When FDR came in, when Roosevelt came in, he made some changes because we couldn't exist in the way that we were going in the Depression if some changes hadn't been made. So there are some protections in bank now where it's insured, so the federal government would actually pay you back if you lost like all your money in the bank, but they didn't have any of that back then. So the banks went bankrupt. So that's when they started taking homes and things like that because they couldn't pay their own bills. So people that couldn't pay them, like they lost farms, they lost houses to the banks. The other thing was, before the crash happened and right when it happened, people started pulling all their money out. And so the banks had no money to use to even invest or try to reinvest even what they had lost. So that's another reason the banks failed. And that's something we'll talk about. I think it'll be on Monday when Roosevelt came in. He said, yeah, we got to close the banks for a couple days, figure this out, and get them back on the right track. By 1933 to 32, 25%, so a quarter of the banks in the nation had failed. So if you think about that, how many banks do we have in Monroe? Probably half a dozen?
Yeah, I think somewhere
Ish. So, I mean, 1 to 2 of the banks in the town just closed. So the people that had money there or loans there, they just didn't have it anymore. It was gone. So I know you can't probably read some of this from there, but this is just like, this was one of those slides that if you do read the book, you can pull up. But this just talks a little bit about the stock market and what happened after the crash. So obviously there were thousands and thousands of people when the banks were crashing, rushing to banks to try and get their money out.
Yeah, wasn't there like, I was in Mr. Alexi's class,
Yeah.
and we talked about this a little bit. Wasn't there like one guy that had like said something about the stock market going down or something?
There were a few people that realized it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So there was a run on the banks, which is why some of the banks failed. But some of the people didn't try to do it until like the crash was actually happening.
Yeah, like they didn't realize what was going on. And then all of a sudden they're just like, oh,
yeah, we
need to do that. We need to get our
money. There were some people that pulled their money out ahead. Those people would still be very wealthy when the market crashed because they took it out at the top. But most people, the common person and the common stockbroker didn't know what was happening, what was going on. So yeah, you're right. It was like that. It was crazy. So just a large crowds, Wall Street. Yeah, obviously there's no internet, cable, television, that kind of thing. So people literally had to physically go there to get their money. The panic grew as rumors spread that brokers and investors were leaping from office windows to their desks. Although unfounded, the rumors added to the despair on the street. So people were saying that, people were jumping off buildings. People did kill themselves during the Depression.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like all of a sudden like hundreds of bankers were just jumping out of their windows.
Yeah.
But it was bad. This is just that is just income. So in dollars, I think that's national spending. So went from like $80 billion a year to almost half of that.
Yeah.
So when you think about people aren't spending, what else is going to happen then?
The flow of currency is not in effect, so like everybody's either losing money or just gaining money.
Yeah.
For no reason.
And I mean, you just think, do you work? Do you have a job?
What's that?
Do you have a job?
I do.
Where do you work?
I work at McDonald's.
Okay, so you work at McDonald's. So that's expendable income, right? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden people can't afford to go to McDonald's. What happens to McDonald's? McDonald's closes, right?
McDonald's can't afford for more product.
Right.
Sold because nobody's coming there.
Right.
So it just screws everything up.
Yeah, I mean the pandemic did that for restaurants a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden people weren't spending money on food.
Small businesses.
So yeah, so it was bad all around. So even people that maybe didn't invest any money in the stock market, but they worked for a factory that made cars was a big thing. Now all of a sudden there's no cars being made. So they're all out of work. So it was that whole trickle down mess. This just talks about installment plans, which I told you is like credit cards now, like buying on credit, like a loan basically. So, and stores had that too back then. So like small stores, grocery stores would even have where like you could buy on credit, especially in smaller towns. But now people couldn't pay their bills. So it was just bad. And the Federal Reserve, we'll talk a little bit about too. That's like our national bank. They made a bunch of mistakes, risky business practices. So they lost money too. So everything was in the toilet, in the shitter. Excuse my language. Unemployment went from below 3% all the way up to 12% at one point. And unemployment was actually higher during the pandemic than it was during the Depression. The thing about the pandemic, though, is it was short-lived. So most people are back to work now. Unemployment it's well under 10% now. It depends on the industry you're into, because I guess the service industry, especially in bigger cities, is really hurting right now. But yeah, unemployment was 12% doesn't look that high, but in some places it was much higher. Does that make sense? And you had 14, 15-year-olds working, even though laws had already been passed that they could only work a certain number, kids needed to go out and work to support their families. Okay. And then I have a link to the crash course here, so if you want to take a look at it, you can. Yeah, so I'll try and keep my lessons during the week to about 20 minutes, but with you in class, it's kind of, as a teacher, it's so nice for me to like have a human to talk to.
Yeah.
But during the week, I'll try and keep it to 20 so you don't have to be on your computer as long. Plus, generally, I love that you're answering questions and stuff. Please feel free to jump in, add things. You don't ever have to like ask permission. Just like if you want to add something, just go ahead and feel free to add something. Trevor's pretty talkative too, so maybe we can have some discussions as we go on. And you know, it's new to us. This whole, even though we've been doing it for a trimester, it's still kind of new as a teacher to be doing this. So if you have ideas, like my kids last semester with, yeah, you should put everything in one place. So if we need to find something, we don't have to find what week it was. Okay, that makes sense. So if you have any great ideas, let me know. And then just know that everything I do will be in Schoology. I know like English puts everything in Google Classroom, but I'll have it all in one place so that you don't have to be looking all over to get it.
Yeah.
So
I think all of my classes are actually
pretty good about that. Well, I think English is in Schoology, but then a lot of their links are in Google Classroom. So
actually, I think.
Oh, they're not?
Yeah, I think the entire class